All right, you want to lose 30 pounds in 90 days? Yeah, I bet. Who doesn't? You want to do it, and you want it to be extremely easy. Of course. I can do this. I can make this happen. I can even show you, but the reality is, you know you, and I have a feeling I know you too. But anyway, welcome to Walk, Talk, Vent. Let's do this.
We need to lose 30 pounds in the next 90 days, and we need to do it in a way that's doable and preferably easy. So here's our game plan. We walk every single day. We talk every single day too. We drink water every single day, and we avoid sugar like the plague. And by walking every single day with me, you'll start to lose a crazy amount of weight. But one of the best ways to walk is when you're talking with a buddy, and that's me. I'm Jesse. Welcome to Walk, Talk, Vent. Guys, today we have a good story, but it's a story that, while it made the news, you didn't have to have it make the news, because the truth is, everybody around the country knows this is happening now. But in West Hollywood, the people that live there are kind of up in arms, because apparently the homelessness problem has really become something crazy beyond belief. There are people that are out nude 24/7. There are people that are going on top of people's vehicles and making gay love. Apparently this is a gay part of West Hollywood, and apparently the homelessness is just unbelievably out of control, to the point where businesses are having a hard time getting customers to even visit them. And on top of this, just like every place in California, this place specifically, people pay rents in the area of $3,600 to $4,000 a month, which leads me to my first question for you. Would you really want to pay that high of a rent if you knew that the neighborhood was literally going to shit? There are complaints of excessive drug use, there are complaints of nudity, there are complaints of naked men making love to one another, jerking each other off, and actually doing this on people's front lawns, on the front step of people's businesses. When I grew up, we actually looked at homeless people and we said, these poor people, if only they had an address, they could get jobs. As I got older, I realized that a lot of homeless people don't really want jobs, and a lot of homeless people don't necessarily have the ability to take those steps to make themselves better. In West Hollywood and in all of California, you have all these politicians that don't seem to help. So what I did was I took this news story and I looked at a couple of the comments. And these comments are from people just like you and me. So with that being said, let's read them together, shall we? Once again, now that the weather's starting to get cool, you see that I've busted out my flannel. And the reality is I see more people walking now in one day than I did in a month, last month, when it was still hot outside. So here's a couple of thought-provoking comments that I thought were pretty darn good, and I wanted to share it with you. At GS3ZI says, FYI, the history of that street that they're talking about in the news article, the history of that street is that it's called Vaseline Alley. Now, I don't know about you, but if a place has its own nickname, you figure that the cops would be able to stay on top of that. Could you imagine raising kids in this area, and all of a sudden your little boy or your little girl looks out the window and they see two guys jerking each other off, making love to one another. They're sleeping naked literally in your front yard on the grass. I don't know about you, but that's enough to make somebody want to pull their hair off. I don't understand how the people in California keep voting for these same yahoos that always talk about change. You know what? Change is happening. Things are getting worse. That's the change that you get when you vote for these type of leaders in your community. That's why there's certain places around the country that I think are genuinely cursed. And I think California is one of those states where, if you've listened to me, those people are cursed. But you want to know something? Even though I live in Arizona, I can't escape the California curse, because these crazy people that vote for these leaders, they get fed up. They move out of California, they come here to Arizona, and they vote for the same idiotic policies that cause the problems out there. If you leave California because you don't like how things are run, quit trying to bring California to places like Arizona. It's irritating when people talk about us being this purple state or this state that's transitioning to blue. It's irritating because it's not Arizonans that feel that way. It's these people from Oregon. It's these people from California. They come out here and they literally change the political landscape. And on top of that, they make our property values go so high that absolutely nobody can afford housing out here in Arizona. Try competing with investors from California. Heck, try competing with people from California that just sold their home for $2 million and now they're taking a $250,000 home and they're making it a $350,000 price tag out here. It is impossible to compete with these Californian people, and it drives Arizonans nuts. And again, if your area is so worthless that your idea is escaping it and then starting it up again in other states, it's beyond crazy. And we have our own little version of California here across the street, trust me. At Davon says, but the LAPD just got new Teslas. Isn't that crazy? That we're so concerned about the environment that we want to bring on new Teslas when we have all these places in California, specifically West Hollywood with this story, that are literally watching as their beautiful, world-renowned places are literally becoming trash heaps. Poop in your front yard. Could you imagine, have you ever smelt a house where they have multiple dogs and there's a ton of poop in their backyard and you can almost smell the poop emanating? Well, it's one thing if you know you're breathing in dog poop. It's another thing if you're breathing in human feces. How gross and disgusting are the people out there that they allow this to happen? Oh, you thought I was talking about the homeless. No, there comes a point where you have to say, you people asked for this. Every time there's a chance to change this, you guys don't change it. So you must really love the smell of human shit. Keep in mind, what's the thing that I can't stand about California most? That all the people from all around the country are so jealously in love with this shithole place they call California that they will take their whole family and spend thousands of dollars to go to Disneyland. Meanwhile, the poor people around the country and impoverished neighborhoods, they can never afford to go to a place like Disneyland. So when you talk about this land of equality and this great utopia known as California and Governor Gavin Newsom, all you really get in life is a dystopia. California is a place that we as Americans should boycott. You want Disneyland to become a little bit more affordable? Quit going there so that the prices come down. It's about supply and demand. When everything that families do is go broke to go visit Disneyland, there's something horribly wrong with that. And I'll tell you till I'm blue in the face, you go to Disneyland and if you don't know the layout and the game plan and a strategy, you're not going to have much fun waiting in lines forever while people park hop and jump the line in front of you. Well, Jesse, anybody can learn about that. Yeah, but how many people do? I took my family out to California 25 years ago, and man, I spent so much money, and I frankly was disappointed. Wrath6909 says, what's the big deal? People in West Hollywood love the homeless, and it shows. You want to know something, Wrath6909? I think there was a point in this country where a lot of us loved the homeless. A lot of us felt bad that there were people that had to sleep underneath newspapers in the parks, right? I think a lot of us felt that tug of pain that there were scenarios like that. Where we went wrong as a country is we should have snuffed that out while it was small. Instead, we let it grow and fester like a cancer, and now we have a situation where kids have to walk to school to try to avoid needles. You have a situation where kids are finding little containers of Narcan, asking their folks, "What's this?" I don't know about you, but if you're letting your kids grow up in a situation where they're seeing naked men make love in your front yard, there's something really demented about your brain. You should be selling that property if it's even sellable, and you should be getting out of there. But wherever you go, quit voting for those type of policies, because all you're doing is making that stuff spread everywhere. At Depth Charges 6215 says, pleading for help, ? They voted for this. Depth charges, you bring up an excellent point that I was just speaking about a couple of minutes ago. When you vote for these policies, when you vote for these people that talk about change, yet everything remains the same and gets more and more miserable, there comes a point where you have to look at the man and woman in the mirror and you have to say, you know what? You asked for this. Your businesses, I don't even know how you stay open. I would never go to a place of business where there's a piece of human shit as you enter the front door. I would never go to a business where you have people making love during the middle of the day, screaming like animals, because that was another thing they mentioned in this video. You've got homeless people screaming at people walking by, screaming at other homeless people, making love on top of people's cars or in people's front yards during the middle of the day. There is no shame in this world. And if you want to see the modern day version of the absolute worst place in the world, go to California. Take a look at some of these homeless encampments. There literally are places where children walk right by these people on the daily. And that just sounds to me like a recipe for disaster. Would you really want your kids walking by knowing these people are doing these hardcore drugs? And that if your kid comes in contact with these drugs, they can drop dead just like that? It's a shame. And just to think that people were wanting Gavin Newsom to go ahead and run for president? What are you, an enemy of the country? That guy doesn't even belong in charge of a little town, let alone California. My goodness. And every time you see him, it's really sick. It's like the guy has a fresh, brand new haircut. He's always got $1,000 suit. Jesse, that suit's closer to $1,700. All right, he's got a $1,700 suit. His shoes and his Rolex probably cost more than your whole wardrobe combined. It's really gross and disgusting. And frankly, Californians, and I've been saying this forever, I'm really disappointed in you. I think, and I'm also disappointed in us. We should have boycotted that state long ago. When you quit giving tourism dollars to these places, they are forced to pivot and change their ways. The only way you could help California is to avoid it. And the only way you can help homelessness is to get a job and not be homeless yourself. Can I get an amen? Now you might be thinking, Jesse, there is no one in the world that wants this to happen. I would argue with you, and so would this next comment. Evisceration writes, as a West Hollywood resident, I support gay homeless people, and we will do our best to help save you, my brother and sisters. I don't know about you, but that gentleman or that woman, whoever wrote that, in my opinion, sounds more sick than the homeless people she's trying to help. There comes a point in this world and in our lives where we have to look at the man and woman in the mirror and we have to ask them to make a change. When you are literally okay with your neighborhoods becoming trash heaps, when you are okay with people in your neighborhoods actively doing drugs out in the open, and when you as a police force or as a mayor or as a governor are okay saying that we don't have a problem when obviously the problem is so extreme, it's crazy. There's something really evil about that. When are the Californians, instead of leaving in droves, when are they going to start changing and getting new leadership in there? You know, I don't care if you're an atheist, California needs a little Jesus. They really do. And if you think Jesus would be okay with people taking craps in front of people's houses and with making love to other men in the front yard of people's houses, I think you're mistaken. Jesus commonly said, sin no more. These places are full of sin, and if you think it's cool that these people are taking over the neighborhood, there's something wrong with you. These things disgust me. What I don't understand is how come as human beings there aren't some things that just disgust all of us? How come certain people are so upset about the things that come out of one president's mouth, but they ignore the things that come out of their president's mouth? How come people are so upset at what a president says, but they're not upset at how a governor is ruining their state? Those are the things that blow me away. You don't have to be Republican, you don't have to be a Democrat to see that the decisions your city council and your leaders are making are absolutely horrible. Why does that have to happen? And if you don't think this affects you, you're wrong. Walk down to your nearest park. You're going to see homeless people there pretty much no matter where you are in the country. Now, I want you to think back to 15 or 20 years ago. It wasn't like that. So at what point do we have to say, holy moly, things are really on the wrong track? It really blows me away that we live in this world where people are willing to pay top dollar to live in these areas. So here's what I'm going to say to the residents of West Hollywood. Suffer. Live in it. Stay in it. Bathe in it. And when your kids become a part of it, enjoy it and love it. That's what you deserve. The best thing that could happen to the country is if Nostradamus was right and California just slipped into the ocean. That would be the best thing that could happen. And what we need to do is we need to think outside of the box by going old school. We need to make homelessness illegal, and you need to start sending people to a jail where they can be forced to get help. Because again, if your mental illness is not taken care of, if you're not trying to help yourself, I think it's criminal. What's really shitty, and this is what propaganda is all about, every now and then they'll show a millionaire, and the millionaire will talk about how he was living in his car and he was homeless, and because of such and such program, he was able to get back on his feet. It's a scam. It's bullshit. Even if it does happen for that one person that gets sober and gets a home and is no longer homeless, that is no reason to just perpetuate the bullshit forever. It is time for Californians to come back to reality, and it's time for us as Americans to quit spending our money in California. You need to boycott that state if you care about that state. The only way to help people is to take away that money until they're willing to help themselves. And if you take your family members out there and something happens to you while you're out there, well, my God, how many of us are trying to tell you it's a shithole out in California? And it's not just limited to West Hollywood. It's in LA, it's in San Francisco. Guess what Gavin Newsom does when President Xi from China comes and visits? He cleans up the street. That alone should upset you. That your streets get cleaned up when President Xi from China comes in? And then you guys say our president, Trump, is the one that has all these shady relationships with all these shady leaders around the country. Well, how come there's no mention of Gavin Newsom licking the boots of President Xi? I mean, I don't know about you, but if you clean up your neighborhood for a foreign leader, my God, you care more about what the foreign leader thinks than what you do your own people. I mean, isn't that one of the things that we complain about China? That they always talk about how great things are in China, but in reality, 80% of the people are poor, right? 30% of the people are literally living in third world conditions. Yet we sit there and brag about China. If you're bragging about China, you're probably a Gavin Newsom fan. I'm telling you, it's disgusting. Our country is disgusting. This is not the America I grew up in. You know why these people are probably selling their homes like crazy? Because this neighborhood right now is the baby version of West Hollywood. We're starting to get to the point where we have zombies walking through the neighborhood. And I don't know about you, but it's not even difficult to find the people that are zombie-rific and homeless. They all look the same. They all have a backpack on their shoulder and they just walk down the streets endlessly. No game plan in sight. Hey, you want a job here working at McDonald's? No, thank you. Do you have 50 cents I can borrow? I mean, that's what the game plan is. I'm telling you, if you would have seen me 30 years ago, I would have been talking a different tune. Hey, people are homeless because they don't have an address that they can put on a job application. People get behind the 8 ball and they're never able to catch up. Man, I wish I could go and put tape over the way I thought when I was a teenager, because it was so naive. You don't realize how cruel it is to the people that have to actually try to live and raise a family when you have these people that are just destroying their neighborhood. And then you pay all these taxes, because you know in California, it's tax after tax after tax, and you get absolutely no relief. It's awful. I can't believe that people are okay with that. And then, like I said, to make matters worse, the ones that get sick of it, they move out to Arizona, raise the property value to the point where it's unattainable by the locals, and then they vote for those same idiotic policies here in Arizona. Terry the Terrify in Utah, you mentioned the same thing, that these people are moving into your areas too, and all of a sudden the state becomes purple, and then all of a sudden it becomes blue. Holy moly, I don't know why people want to live like that. It's really depressing. Speaking of depressing, on a completely side note, yesterday I made the argument that, hey, we need to arm everybody, but sometimes you hear a story that makes you think twice. So I'm going to play a little devil's advocate to the point of view that I mentioned yesterday. I believe it was in the state of Washington. We had a situation where a teenage boy, age 14, got a hold of a gun. I don't know if it was his father's gun or what, but he ended up taking out his mother, his father, his 2 younger siblings. And the reason he finally got caught was because his sister, who he shot twice, was able to call 911. So out of this family of 6 or 7 people, now it's only him, the kid, who's obviously going to be going to jail, and his sister, who got shot twice. The poor sister is now in a situation where her whole family has been eliminated because of this gun and because of her brother. So again, yesterday I'm arguing that we need to arm everybody, and today I'm giving you a devil's advocate story. But here's the difference between me and most people. I don't just sit there and say, Hal, Jesse, here's a situation where if guns were no longer there and available, this family would still be alive. But reality tells me, no, if there weren't guns, this kid would have gotten a knife from the kitchen and probably taking out his younger siblings. He probably would have taken out his dad and mom first while they were sleeping. These are things that can happen. If you remember, we're dealing with a case with Brian Kohberger. I forget what state it is. Guys, let me know in the comments what state Brian Kohberger's situation is. I don't know if it's Washington State as well. God, a lot of things happen in that part of the country. But remember, he supposedly took out 4 college students with a knife while they were sleeping. So again, bad people are going to do bad, heinous things. Do you take away the one weapon so they can replace it with another? You know, would you rather get bludgeoned to death by being stabbed with a sharp knife or being stabbed with a butter knife? Either way, it's going to be miserable, right? So my thinking is, once again, this is a situation where a teenager just kind of flipped and went crazy. I don't even know the name of the family or what have you. It was just a story I heard right now. The reason I mentioned the Hollywood story, in case you're wondering, is because I live in a neighborhood where 30 years ago, it was beautiful. Now you can't go within 3 or 4 miles without seeing a bunch of homeless encampments. Even here where I live, in the suburbs, we have areas of town where I used to walk when I was 10 years old with my friends that I wouldn't want my 10-year-old walking now. I mean, literally, bus stops where you're waiting for the bus, they're no longer bus stops. They are beds where homeless people are sleeping. The other day I was at the corner and I was driving to Planet Fitness, and there was a guy sitting on the sidewalk waiting for the bus. And I looked at the bus stop where there's a bench, and there's this giant homeless man sleeping on the bus stop bench. And this poor guy sitting on the floor, you could tell that, he didn't want to cause any trouble. Well, that's the problem with the world we live in. Nobody wants to say anything. Nobody wants to cause any trouble. And by the way, if there's a crazy homeless guy sleeping on the bench, I'm not advocating waking him up and starting something. You never know. That guy could take out a knife and end your life. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as a people, we see one homeless person in the neighborhood and we say, hey, that poor guy, he needs help. A week later, we see him and his homeless girlfriend, and then they have 3 or 4 buddies that visit him. Enough! Holy shit, can't I ever talk without these dogs bothering me? These things irritate the shit out of me. If you see one homeless person in your neighborhood, run him off before he calls all his friends. Because before you know it, you'll live in a neighborhood like mine where every day there's more homeless people than there were the day before. And if you are some homeless person that magically improved your lot in life, quit talking about it like it's some romantic thing. Everybody goes to work and pays their bills. If you have mental illness, it is your duty to go get help. If you're not going to get help, I don't think the country should just allow you to sleep and camp out in people's yards. It's criminal. So I no longer look at the homeless people as these victims of society. They're the criminals of society as far as I'm concerned. And if you're angry about that, be angry. Tell me in the comments what a horrible human being I am. But you know who I think is horrible? People that are okay with neighborhoods being ruined and the innocence of children being taken because people are humping each other in people's front yards and taking shits outside of people's businesses. And if you're a business owner, have the guts to tell me right now, what would you do if someone took a daily shit at the front stoop of your business? Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.